They speak of invaders from distant lands, of corsairs sailing tempestuous seas. Fools! The true enemy of the Sultan does not march from the desert, nor does it rise from the churning depths. It resides within, right here, behind these very walls, in the opulent, beating heart of the empire. This palace, look upon it. A sprawling monument to power, built not just with stone but with the very breath of a dying empire. Gold leaf drips from every arch, cascading like liquid sunlight, catching fire on the polished curves of ancient mosaics. Marble, veined like an old man's hand, gleams under the high domes, reflecting not just the ambition of men, but the envious gaze of forgotten gods. Each courtyard, a meticulously ordered universe, every fountain, a whisper of endless wealth. Here, every sound is muffled by priceless Persian carpets, every whisper swallowed by velvet drapes, every secret absorbed by the ancient, fragrant wood. The air itself, heavy with jasmine and exotic incense, conspires to lull you into a false sense of impenetrable security. A gilded dream, so perfect it almost feels eternal, but look closer, past the shimmer, beyond the flawless facade, for within this fortress of unparalleled beauty, the most insidious poisons are brewed. Not in crude cauldrons, but in the hearts of those who walk these hallowed halls, whose faces are serene, whose smiles are like daggers. The very walls that promise absolute protection, that stand as the ultimate bulwark against the outside world, offer the perfect sanctuary for betrayal. See how the light, caught on that vast polished marble floor, dances? For a fleeting moment, a shadow flickers within its depths, not of a passing servant or a stoic guard, but something far more ancient, more hungry. It is the ghost of 1,000 whispered plots, the echo of a forgotten poison slipped into a chalice, the memory of a dynasty almost broken. A crimson silk scarf, discarded perhaps near that ornate fountain, its fabric still warm from a hurried touch. Does it merely mark a moment of carelessness, or does it hold the silence of a terrible secret, a confession unmade, a promise broken? These are the arenas where the true battles are fought. Not with steel, but with cunning. Not with armies, but with carefully chosen words, with the delicate dance of power among women whose destinies are interwoven with the Sultan's bloodline. This isn't merely a home, it is a meticulously crafted world, where the most precious treasures are not jewels, but the lives and loyalties, the very souls of those who reside here. And where the deadliest game is played, not on distant battlefields, but in the delicate shift of a glance, the subtle inflection of a voice. Here, safety is the greatest lie whispered from gilded lips. Here, the grand illusion of peace is the most perfect camouflage for an unseen, festering war. These walls, they are not just a fortress, impenetrable and grand, they are a gilded cage, holding both the Sultan and his worst enemy captive, locked together, hidden in plain sight. The silence in these gilded halls, my friends, is a deception. It is not the peace of contentment, but the heavy hush of a predator's weight. Beneath the polished marble, behind the tapestries whispering ancient victories, lies a truth far more chilling than any external threat. I have lingered in these chambers, watched generations rise and fall. And the picture, friends, is always the same. The sharpest pain comes from those whom you call your family. They speak of the Sultan's bloodline as a river, deep and powerful, carrying the might of an empire. But they fail to mention its treacherous currents, its hidden whirlpools where loyalty drowns. Every drop, you see, carries not just the promise of dominion, but the seed of destruction. The enemy here is not some distant rebel with a crude blade, nor a foreign monarch plotting from across the sea. No, the true threat wears the same fine silks, shares the same breath scented with jasmine and ambition. It resides within the very heart of the dynasty, a poison coursing through the veins of those bound by invisible ties. This is the curse of legacy, a shadow that clings to the jewel-encrusted robes of power. What should be a fortress built by shared heritage becomes a cage where suspicion gnaws at the soul. Each child born into this lineage, each brother, each mother, carries not just a claim to the throne, but the terrifying potential to become a killer. For when the prize is the very sun itself, illuminating an entire world, who among them can resist the urge to claim its warmth, even if it means plunging others into eternal shadow? I recall a sultan, long past, whose chamber I often observed from this very pillar. He received a blade of exquisite gold, its hilt encrusted with sapphires and rubies, shimmering with deadly beauty. A gift, they said, from his own brother, a token of enduring fealty, a pledge of unbreakable brotherhood. Yet that very dagger, polished to a mirror sheen, was found by his bedside, stained not with the rust of neglect, but with something far darker, far more intimate. A story told in silence by a glint of steel and a pool of crimson. And the seals, my friends. The symbols of unwavering imperial will impressed upon scrolls of decree, I have seen them shattered, not by the hands of invading armies, but by the very fingers that penned the words beneath. A brother's hand, a mother's, guided by a fear more potent than any love, a longing for power that eclipses all bonds. The ink still wet, the vows of loyalty still echoing, as the promise of a future was irrevocably broken. This is not a game played with armies on distant fields, under banners unfurled against an obvious foe. This is a war fought in the deepest chambers of the mind, within the very soul itself. The deepest betrayal is always born from the closest intimacy, from the tenderest affection. Love, in this crucible of power, is but another weapon, a vulnerability to be exploited, a trust to be shattered. The tragedy, you see, is that the very bonds meant to offer solace become the chains of their undoing. They are bound by blood, yes, but that same blood, so precious, so revered, is also the ink with which their destinies are written, destinies often stained scarlet. The Sultan's worst enemy, always hidden in plain sight, reflected in his own eyes, sharing his own name.
Мы стояли здесь веками, безмолвные свидетели, высеченные из самой земли, наблюдая, как солнце расписывает покои султана имперским золотом и угасающим пурпуром. Мы видели, как над династиями восходит рассвет, и как тени, холодные и терпеливые, надвигаются на их неизбежный закат. Здесь учишься читать воздух, понимать, что настоящие битвы ведутся не сталью на равнинах, а шепотом в этих позолоченных стенах. Здесь процветает невидимый враг, змея, свернувшаяся под бархатной подушкой, чей яд – медленное, коварное жжение. Дворец дышит роскошью, выдох редких специй, шелест необработанного шелка, нежный плеск фонтанов в мраморных дворах. Каждая поверхность сияет, каждая ткань переливается, свидетельствуя о власти и безграничном богатстве. Но под этой роскошной кожей пульсирует иной ритм – лихорадочный, нервный пульс, ускоряющийся с каждой невинной улыбкой, с каждым едва уловимым взглядом. Ибо враг здесь не носит саблю, он держит кубок. Взгляните на эти любезности – серебряный поднос, предложенный с опущенными глазами. Хрустальный бокал, наполненный ярким румянцем щербета, его поверхность безупречна. Аромат едва уловимый, почти воображаемый, но цепляющийся к языку, как предчувствие, горький поцелуй сырого миндаля. Он преподнесен с чистейшей, незапятнанной улыбкой, жестом покорности, преданности. И в этой самой невинности часто звучит похоронный звон целой кровной линии. Никто не кричит, никто даже не кашляет. Сама тишина становится палачом. Или вспомните гарем, где мелодия лютни когда-то ткала сны о покое и желании. Сладкая меланхоличная мелодия, внезапно резко обрывающаяся. Струны умолкают, оставляя затяжное эхо в благоуханном воздухе. Каждая женщина замирает, коллективный вдох, общее понимание того, что предвещает эта внезапная тишина. Это не раскат грома, а вес тишины, который вселяет страх в сердце. Ибо в этой пустоте разрушается репутация, ставится под сомнение верность, темное обвинение сажается как семя в плодородную почву подозрения. Говорят, у стен есть уши, здесь у них есть и голоса. Не крики, но потоки слухов, которые водоворотом закручиваются и бурлят, неся фрагменты правды, искаженные до осколков лжи. Ты слышала? Говорят, ее мать. Неужели? Честь королевы, будущая принцессы, секрет евнуха – все это становится пищей для этой невидимой мельницы. Доверие, основа любого правления, разрушается, крупица за крохотной крупицей. Султан, ослепленный собственным величием, самой дерзостью своей власти, ищет врагов в далеких землях. Он не видит яда, заваривающегося в его собственных покоях, преподнесенного с поклоном, скрытого шелком, доставленного руками, поклявшимися в верности. Это искусство скрытого врага, шедевр разрушения, созданный из тишины и одного, хорошо продуманного слова. Вы понимаете теперь, каково истинное поле битвы? Это не поле чести, но позолоченная клетка, где династия истекает кровью от тысячи невидимых порезов.
He sits upon the golden throne, a mountain of power, his shadow stretching across continents. Yet tell me, where does the true threat reside for such a man? Not in the roar of distant armies, nor the clash of steel on an open field. No, my dear. The gravest danger, the most venomous threat, breathes the same perfumed air, walks the same gilded halls, and meets his gaze with an unwavering smile. Look closer into the eyes of the Grand Vizier, whose counsel shapes the very destiny of the empire. His voice, a balm of loyalty, pours forth wisdom honed by generations. But beneath the velvet and the flawless rhetoric, does not a man remember his own ancestors? A bloodline, perhaps, that once tasted the sweet nectar of supreme power. A glory diminished by the Sultan's own ascendancy. Is his devotion pure, or is it a long game, a patient chisel against the very foundations of the dynasty he serves? The poison of ambition, silent and slow, often wears the mask of unwavering fealty. Consider the chief black eunuch, a silent sentinel, a master of whispers and unseen pathways. His life, a gilded cage, stolen and reshaped for service. What does such a man truly hold in his heart? Loyalty, perhaps, born of habit and fear, or is it a simmering despair, a silent vengeance for a life he never chose, for a future denied? His hands, that secure the Sultan's most precious jewels, could just as easily secure a fatal secret. A single glance from him, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes, as he passes a parchment to the Sultan, speaks volumes of unsaid things, of pacts made in the deep shadows of the harem. And the women, you ask? The concubines, whose beauty is their power, whose every sigh and glance is a strategic move. The favorite, whose soft hand caresses the Sultan's brow, whose whispers fill his nights with comfort and desire. Does not a mother's love for her son, for his future, for his claim to the bloodline, eclipse all other loyalties? The silk that drapes her exquisite form could hide more than just curves. It could conceal a desperate letter, a tiny vial, a silent plea for a future that will only dawn if another's fades. Her eyes, meeting yours across a crowded chamber, hold a depth, a calculation that chills far beyond mere rivalry. It is the ruthlessness of survival, of a game where the stakes are not merely power, but existence itself. Even the trusted personal guard, his blade ever ready to leap to the Sultan's defense. What forgotten slight might fester in his memory? A brother lost to a sultan's careless whim, a village razed on an imperial order, a promise broken long ago, a moral calculus where personal honor outweighs the sanctity of the throne. As the Sultan rises from his slumber, a young servant helps him with his ceremonial robes. For a fleeting moment, a slight tremor runs through the boy's hand. And then, a single unbidden tear escapes, instantly absorbed by the rich fabric. Unseen, unnoticed. A silent testament to a hidden sorrow, a secret alliance, or perhaps a terrible forced choice. There are no true villains in this intricate dance, only players consumed by the burning desire to endure. Each choice, a desperate gamble in a world where good and evil blur into shades of grey, where trust is a currency that buys betrayal, and silence is the most dangerous weapon of all. And as the Sultan sleeps, dreaming of distant battles, the true war rages within these very walls. A war waged by the faces he believed in, a shadow stretching from every pillar, every curtain, every heart. The air in the Sultan's private chambers grew thick, not with incense or exotic perfumes, but with a silence that pressed down like a shroud. His eyes, once beacons of conquest, now darted into every shadow, searching for spectres only he could conjure. The greatest threat had ceased to be the distant infidel or the scheming vizier. No, the enemy had taken root far closer, a serpent coiling within his own breast, feeding on suspicion, on the very taste of absolute dominion. He had believed he wielded power, but now power wielded him. Every whisper in the court became a harbinger of betrayal. Every loyal gaze, a mask for a hidden dagger. The sacred bloodline, once his strength, became a chain of potential rivals, each breath a perceived challenge to his throne. He saw plots in innocent gatherings, heard dissent in the rustle of silk curtains, tasted poison in every cup, every gesture of fealty. Do you see it now? The insidious nature of ambition, the isolating weight of a crown. He stood before a polished silver mirror, its surface reflecting not the sovereign, but a haunted man, his features etched with a dread that was utterly his own. It was as if the glass had begun to crack, revealing a future shattered by his own hand. The imperial crown, heavy with jewels and the accumulated dust of a dynasty's history, seemed to settle not on his head, but directly upon his very soul, crushing him. Its unbearable weight, a constant reminder of the isolation absolute power demands. He had sought to purge his realm of all opposition, leaving behind a court of hushed agreement, a suffocating silence. And in that vacuum, the true menace bloomed. He believed he wielded the power to shape destinies, unaware that he was merely sculpting his own doom. The architect of a magnificent empire, slowly, meticulously constructing its and his demise. For the Sultan, the most cunning, the most ruthless, the most patient enemy was not lurking in the distant mountains or behind the walls of his rivals. He was here, in this chamber, breathing the same air, staring back from the shattered reflection, the Sultan himself.